and welcome to today's lecture on Athena. I'm your professor, Dr. Rob Steffen, and today we are going to talk about the goddess of wisdom, war, and craftsmanship. Now, you might be thinking that, hey, isn't Hephaestus the god of craftsmanship? And isn't Ares the god of war? Well, Athena's the god of both of those things too, and it's her wisdom that sets her apart. So whether you want to knit a new robe, or are simply looking for victory, journey with me as we investigate Athena, goddess of wisdom, war, and craftsmanship.
As with most mythological birth stories, the birth of Athena begins with Zeus hooking up with someone who's not Hera. The good news this time is that Hera's just not in the picture yet. Think of this as happening before they get together. Well, the lucky lady, or Titaness in this instance, is Metis, the wisest of all the Titans. And it just so happens that Zeus is gaining a little wisdom too. His mother, Rhea, had warned him that he would be overthrown by his own child. And so he takes a page out of his father, Cronus's book, and simply eats Metis whole once he learns that she's become pregnant.
So this is Zeus's strategy for not having his child overthrown, simply eating them whole, just like his dad Cronus did. And later on he gets together with Hera. And, for all the terrible things he does to Hera, at least he doesn't eat her whole. But together, they hook up and they have lots of little Olympian babies populating the heavens.
One day, Zeus starts having a headache, and it's bad. A headache for the ages. It's so bad, in fact, that Zeus calls up Hephaestus, god of the forge, to use his enormous double-bladed axe to slice open his head and relieve his pain. And to everyone's surprise, Athena, the daughter of Zeus and the goddess of wisdom, emerges, fully formed, dressed for battle, and ready to be one of the most awesome goddesses in all of Greece.
Now, this all goes to show you just can't stop fate. And because she was kind of born in a somewhat virgin-style birth, Athena is one of the virgin goddesses. And she has one of the closest bonds between father and daughter in all of Greek mythology. And she's also a goddess of wisdom because her mom, Metis, played that same role among the Titans. Now you can always recognize Athena because she's got her helmet and her spear and her shield. So look at those, or look for those things when identifying the goddess of wisdom, war, and craftsmanship.
Now Athena is associated with wisdom, but it's most often a very practical wisdom, like knowing how to get things done. And for that reason, she's goddess of craftsmen, and known, and perhaps surprisingly worshipped in Sparta, as Chalkioikos, or the goddess of the bronze house, where she's worshipped alongside Hephaestus. She's the brains of forging, he's the bronze of forging. And with this wisdom of craftsmanship, she helps invent the plow, and the bridle for driving a chariot, and shipbuilding, and weaving. And she's the patron goddess of everyone who does these things.
Now, things don't go so smoothly here. Arachne, this woman from this little town in Lydia, is so good at weaving that she starts boasting that she could beat Athena herself. Now, Athena's going to give her a chance, and so she comes down from Olympus in the form of this old lady and just says, hey, you should probably be a little more respectful of the gods. And Arachne, she doesn't take kindly to that advice. She just throws a ball of yarn at this crazy old lady, and Athena is not having that.
Athena finally reveals herself in all her godly glory, and the gauntlet has been thrown. It's time for a weaving contest. But even now, Arachne doesn't stop her boastfulness. While Athena weaves her beautiful pattern, Arachne weaves a picture of Zeus, Athena's dad, running around chasing women who are not her mom. Athena is furious naturally, but even she must admit that Arachne's weaving is technically perfect.
And this is when Arachne makes her final mistake. And she turns to Athena and says, hey, I told you I was as good as you. And Athena looks at her and says, oh yeah? You like weaving so much? How about you weave forever? And she curses Arachne, and Arachne starts shrinking and growing arms and legs and eyes and becoming all hairy. And she turns into, of course, the world's first spider. And so she's kept her skill at weaving, but she's lost her humanity.
It might seem surprising that a goddess so adept at craftsmanship and wisdom is also so closely associated with bloodshed and warfare. And yet Athena undoubtedly is a goddess of war. Her epithet, Athena Promachos, quite literally means Athena in front of the battle. And she is most commonly depicted with her shield and spear and helmet. And yet, upon deeper inspection, this connection is perhaps less surprising. While Ares is the god of bloodlust and rage and destruction in warfare, Athena is the goddess of all the positive aspects of warfare, strategy and courage and justice. And these qualities mesh much more closely with someone we know as the goddess of wisdom.
And we certainly see the respect for these qualities amongst the Greeks and the difference in the number of sanctuaries Athena has versus Ares. So some of the Greeks' most impressive sanctuaries are for the goddess Athena. Just think of the Parthenon on the Athenian Acropolis. Ares, on the other hand, with his bloodlust and rage, has almost no sanctuaries throughout the Greek world.
Athena can also be seen helping some of Greek mythology's most famous heroes, sometimes in warfare, sometimes in other labors. Achilles' ability to push back the Trojan army, for example, is a direct result of the deception inspired by Athena. And Heracles' ability to clean the Augean stables by redirecting local rivers is also the plan of the goddess of wisdom. And when Heracles can't reach the Stymphalian birds, it's Athena's sistrum that he uses to get them to rise from the lake. And it's her gift of a reflective shield that allows Perseus to defeat the dreaded Medusa.
And most famous of all, it's Athena who inspires Odysseus to devise the Trojan horse. And once it's led into the city of Troy, the Greeks pour out and the city burns down. Finally, this 10-year-long war comes to a close.
Athena is worshipped across the Greek world, as far away as Crete and even in Sparta, the long-standing enemy of Athena's patron city. And yet, it is undoubtedly on the Acropolis in Athens that Athena has her most famous sanctuary, the Parthenon itself.
Now, the Parthenon comes from the epithet of Athena for Athena Parthenos, very literally, Athena the Virgin. And because she was kind of born as a virgin, she also becomes a protector of young girls in Greek society, much like Artemis and Hestia as well.
The Parthenon itself is considered important today as the pinnacle of Doric religious architecture during the classical period in Greece. It was built during the 5th century BCE, when Athens was getting rich in the aftermath of the defeat of the Persians in the wars at the beginning of that century. And because the Persians had burnt the Acropolis during their invasion, the Athenians had a completely blank slate to work with. The Doric nature of the temple means that it's plain, bowl-shaped capitals, and it has columns that rest directly on the platform, and that on the outside of the temple, it's decorated with triglyphs and metopes, rather than a continuous decorative frieze.
Now, these decorations show the victory of Greeks over these barbarian groups. So we get the Greeks defeating the centaurs and the giants and the Trojans and the Amazons. And on the pediments, those triangular things on the front and back above the columns, well, they tell two of the stories most closely associated with Athena. We get the birth of her out of the head of Zeus, and we get the contest for Athens between Athena and Poseidon.
Inside the temple was a massive cult statue designed by Phidias, the most famous sculptor in 5th century Greece. It was Elephantine, made of gold and ivory, and it depicted the goddess in her Promachos form, even though the sanctuary was dedicated to Athena Parthenos. And the battle-clad Athena held a smaller statue, another version of herself, Athena Nike, the goddess of victory, in her right hand.
Interestingly, there's actually a temple to Athena Nike on the Acropolis itself. So it's right near the Propylaea where you enter the Acropolis. And it's a small little Ionic temple that juts out over the city, looking all the way to the Aegean Sea.
Inside the outer columns of the temple, but before you get inside the walls of the temple proper, a massive frieze, or continuous set of sculptures, wrapped around the upper part of this building. This sculptural program tells the tale of the Panathenaic festival, one of the most important religious festivals in the city of Athens.
Now, the Panathenaic festival takes place every 4 years on the birthday of Athena. But this isn't some solemn religious ritual. This is a party. So there are athletic games and musical competitions and poetry slams and a giant procession that starts outside of the city and ends up on the Acropolis in front of the temple to Athena, Parthenos, better known as the Parthenon, itself.
That procession held the purpose of bringing the cult statue of Athena a new garment, known in Greek as a peplos. The peplos itself was so massive that it had to be brought in on the mast of a ship. And as we see on the frieze, this procession included all kinds of people: equestrian riders on horseback, musicians, herdsmen, animals for sacrifice, priests and priestesses, and much, much more. The frieze ends with the peplos being given to Athena herself, who sits amongst the Olympian gods. And it stands today as one of our greatest examples of classical Greek sculpture.
Now, one of the cool things is that we've actually got the archaeological remains of the prizes for these competitions. And what they are, they're a large ceramic vessel known as an amphora with Athena, the goddess, depicted on one side, and on the other side is a depiction of that particular competition. So it could be running or boxing or the pentathlon, something along those lines. Pretty cool to have a 2,000-year-old trophy. So Athena is a very practical goddess who helps people get through the everyday challenges of life, right? Warfare, manufacturing, but she does that in a very cerebral sort of way. And the material remains that are associated with Athena, well, things like the Temple of Athena Nike and the Parthenon on the Acropolis and the sculptural programs that go with those temples, well, those are some of the most stunning in all of ancient Greece. So next time you're looking for a little wisdom, don't forget,
Goddess of wisdom, war, and craftsmanship.